But now a story out of Hamilton, where the city council has asked the provincial and federal governments to step in and pass laws that would prevent images of aborted fetuses from landing on local doorsteps. Last night on Friendly Fire, John Downs and I spoke to Terry Whitehead. He's a Hamilton city councillor who put forward this motion to ban these graphic images on these flyers being delivered door to door.
I don't think that this is about censoring them from utilizing those images in the proper forums. But when 12-year-olds or 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds are picking these postcards off out of mom's mailbox or off the door front or the door handle and bringing it to home and crying and in one case getting sick, and the parents calling me totally upset and can't understand why government can't do something about it. And by the way, some of these parents calling me are pro-lifers. And they just completely disagree with the type of imagery, and especially when it's so accessible to the very kids, the very people that we try to protect.
So this move is coming after the pro-life group Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform delivered postcards to Hamilton Mountain homes showing aborted fetuses. As White has just told us, he was inundated with calls saying, you got to do something about that. Do you think that there's something they should do about it is ban these kinds of images from this kind of advertising? 416-872-1010, Star Talk, star 8255 on your cell phone. You can text me at 71010, and in a few minutes we will get to your thoughts on this. But first I want to talk to Jonathon Van Maren, who's from the Centre for Bioethical Reform, which is the group behind these Hamilton postcards. Jonathon, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Ed.
So describe these postcards you're sending out are advertising for your cause, to raise awareness for an issue you think is important.
Right. So we've distributed a couple of different kinds. The one that's getting the attention at this moment just shows a picture of NDP MP Chris Charlton of Hamilton Mountain, transposed next to an aborted fetus with just the very simple factual statement that Chris Charlton supports abortion, which is of course true. So we're just trying to raise awareness about a number of very simple facts, and on that postcard we highlight something that polls have told us up to 80% of the Canadians are not aware of, and that's that abortion is legal throughout all 9 months of pregnancy here in Canada, and further that our taxpayer dollars actually fund this procedure. So we consider it very much an information campaign.
Right. So, but to make that point, you feel like you need a dismembered fetus, like a picture, a graphic picture?
Yeah, we live in a very visual culture, and if we can't show people the victims and they really can't grasp what it is that we're talking about, and I'm sure you're familiar with the lingo, right? Often we hear it's not a baby, it's a clump of cells. Well, these pictures highlight the fact that we are not talking about a clump of cells. We are talking about an unborn human being that's very much a human.
But you realize that people find this image, I mean, I think you realize it because I think this is why you're using it, that people find this image physically revolting. They see it, and, Councillor Whitehead was saying this kid threw up, right? Do you think it's appropriate to be putting this material, especially on a postcard, where in the way that, like, people listening to the radio, if I were to swear right now or to say something obscene, there are regulations about that because the idea is that there are things that are disturbing or offensive that there should be some level of consent.
Right. Our postcards are not obscene, but I would agree with you that they're very, very disturbing. But we have to ask ourselves why they're disturbing. And the reason they're disturbing is because we come face to face with a reality that most of us have never faced before, and that's that in our country, this procedure is happening 266 times a day. And we're funding it. So we recognize that there is a lot of shock and awe, as Terry Whitehead said, in reaction to our postcard campaign. But we consider that type of awareness to be a positive thing. And if the images are revolting, the question we have to ask ourselves is, what is more revolting, an image of this procedure or the fact that this procedure is happening and we're paying for it?
Well, but let me ask you another question, and I'll just tell you, way back when I was in grade 13, which dates me a little bit, I had a writer's craft teacher in my Catholic high school who was the head of a group called Liberals for Life. So our writing process is mostly involved critiquing anti-abortion literature, first of all, critiquing media issues about abortion to identify the pro-choice bias, and then critiquing pro-life literature to talk about how effective it was. And he was emphatic that when you try to shock people like this, when you try to jolt them, they don't actually get your message. What they do is they hate you. They hate you, and they close their mind to you. Does that ever enter into your thinking on this, that people who you make sick are not likely to want to listen to what you have to say?
Well, of course, you only hear one side of the story in the media because we get a lot of phone calls and we get a ton of testimonies too. And we don't do this because we want people to hate this. We do this because we have quantitative and qualitative evidence showing us that this does work and that it does change people's minds on this. Most of us who work for this group actually work for this group because we saw the reality of what abortion was, and that compelled us to do something. I've held in my arms a child whose mother had scheduled him for an abortion until she saw one of our signs. We get a lot of phone calls and emails and messages from people who received our postcard thanking us for the postcard and informing us that they've called their MP to complain about his or her position. So, of course, the media is only going to tell you one side, and that's the negative reaction. But, of course, we at CCBR see the very positive side of this all, and that's what propels us to do what we do every day.
Jonathon, thank you for coming on here to explain yourself. I got to tell you that I'm getting calls and texts here, and it's not the media filtering them. I have none in support of you right now, but I have quite a lot of people saying that they think they have a right to not have this sort of thrust towards them and that they're horrified by this. I'm going to get to those calls and texts in just a moment. We'll continue talking about this issue, but right now it's 2:15. Time for Newstalk 1010, Time Saver Traffic.
My daughter was very upset when she saw this graphic image, and I don't think she's ready for me to sit down and have that discussion with her. And I don't think it's fair that it's forced upon me or foisted upon me by this organization. And to me, it's not about whether you're pro-life or pro-choice. It really isn't. God bless them for doing whatever they can to deliver their message and get people to understand their point of view. But don't impose it on people in the way they are with these graphic images, and don't do it, certainly with young children.
That was the voice of a Hamilton City councillor last night on Friendly Fire. He and his city council want the upper levels of government, the federal government or the provincial government, to ban the distribution, especially these postcards, of images of aborted fetuses in door-to-door delivered mail. Just before the break, we spoke to a representative from the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform who are delivering those postcards, who was saying that they think that sort of graphic shock treatment is effective. I got a text here on the 71010 board that says, Edward, while this person is... There we go. Edward, while this person is entitled to his views, I have a right not to want to receive this literature. This is a medical procedure decided on between a woman and her doctor. No one else should be involved. And we're getting lots of calls about this. I'm going to get to them now. If you have an opinion, you can share it. 416-872-1010, Star Talk, star 8255 on your cell phone. John, you live in Hamilton?
I do.
And you got one of these postcards?
I did. And what I find so disgusting about it, because they were very graphic, and two quick things. What I found so awful about them is the fact that the person that delivered to my home did not look to be very old, so she was with an older individual. And, I have no problem with them giving me a postcard that would say, we're against abortion and tell me why it's bad. But these things were like, I would even have to say they were on the line of being abusive to children, because the people that were delivering these things did not seem to be that much older than a child themselves.
So when you saw the postcard and you saw the children delivering it, how did it make you feel?
I was disgusted. I could not believe that they would put this crap out there like that. Right away I walked out. I didn't want to get near the people because I didn't want them to think I was about to do them any harm. But I did happen to talk to the older woman from quite a distance. I asked her not to please put any more of that garbage in my mailbox. But I can't believe these people are doing this. Like, what's in their minds?
And you think they should be banned from doing it?
I think they should be banned from doing this type of thing. If they want to protest and hand out flyers that say why they're against abortion and why they feel it's wrong, that's fine. But
Okay.
when they get this graphic, and one more thing is I noticed too that the flyer had a picture of Chris Charlton on the cover, and it also was the same color as the NDP
Right.
colors, and it was done during the election. So I mean, I just found I couldn't believe they would hand these flyers out there. And I'd also heard the story about I wasn't there, but I had heard the story. I'd been told that they had a banner out. They were standing across.
Right, there was a banner on the bridge, and that they did get banned from that, right?
No. They were standing across from a public school with this banner.
Oh, okay.
And if it weren't for the high school kids next door to the public school, they left their school and they walked and stood in front of the banner so the children wouldn't have to see it. So I just can't believe these people would want to do what they do to put their message out there. It was just disgusting. I can't believe that they can sleep at night with this type of stuff.
John, I appreciate the perspective from Hamilton. I want to get to some of these other callers. We're talking about whether graphic photos of dismembered fetuses should be banned from literature delivered door-to-door, postcards delivered door-to-door. Hamilton City Council thinks so. Amanda, thanks for holding the line. You're on the air.
You're welcome. Hi.
So how do you feel about this?
Well, I'm actually pro-life. It's not an opinion I push on other people. I'm actually pregnant with my fourth child right now.
Right. So you're sympathetic to the message of these that the group is putting forward?
No. When I was pregnant with my last baby, I drove past a group of teenagers and senior citizens holding giant signs of these dismembered fetuses, and I've actually miscarried. I've lost a baby who looked similar to these posters that they held up, and I held this baby in my hand, and when I saw those posters, I actually had to pull my car over and I vomited, and I was so upset the rest of the day, because even as someone who could never personally have an abortion, for people to put that out there for children to see, for people who've lost a child to see, it is one of the most horrific things, and it's hurtful to people. And even I've had friends who have had abortions, and I've supported them, even though it's not something I could do. But it's hurtful to people, and it doesn't get the message across. It makes them look like fanatics. It makes them look hateful and judgmental, and it is the wrong way to get the message across.
All right. Well, thank you, Amanda, for your perspective on that. Obviously, strong personal reactions to these flyers, and that seems to be what the intention of these is to provoke a strong reaction. But the people we've heard some from so far don't think that it makes them more sympathetic to the message. It makes them angry at the messenger. David, you're on In-Depth Radio, Newstalk 1010.
Hi, I support the flyers.
Right.
I support them for two reasons.
Sure.
Reason number one, the majority of aborted babies are of single, unwed, teenage mothers, and they're usually boys. I happen to be that exact person. And there was a group that saved my life back in the day when my mother was being pressured to have an abortion when she was 16 years old. It's not just between a woman and a doctor. It's also between the survivors that lived through the attempt to abort them. And as far as the graphicness of the images, we have graphic images all the time.
Right. All right, David. Well, thanks for that. Big Al? Big Al, what do you say to that? We just heard from David that we see graphic images all the time and that it's an important message. What do you think?
I think they should be charged with child pornography because, according to them, life begins at conception. Therefore, they're distributing photos of naked children.
And dismembered children. I mean,
they're still naked. It's still pornography.
Right.
And pornography doesn't have to be sexual.
I understand that. And that's what I'm trying to say is that snuff films would be illegal here in Canada. I mean, it's an interesting question. A lot of people here say, how is this different than the graphic images in cigarette ads? Or what about, like PETA, the animal rights group, shows graphic images, or anti-war people show graphic images?
To me, that's all pornography.
Right. And
in this case, it just happens to be child pornography.
And I guess if we're not just specifically talking about sex, then pornography would be something that's specifically intended to just provoke this visceral reaction and serves very little other purpose than that, right?
In this case, yeah.
So how does this make you feel?
Oh, I think it's disgusting. And,
All right.
and they probably caused a lot of accidents standing on the side of the road. They should be charged with distracting drivers as well while they're at it.
All right. Big Al, thanks so much for your call. We got about 1 minute left. Christine, you got a suggestion?
Hi. I just think they would reach a greater audience if they would put them in sealed envelopes.
Right.
Because I know for myself, if I were to came home and find this graphic postcard, it goes right in the garbage before my daughter can even see it, and I don't read it.
Yeah.
But if it's in a sealed envelope, I can read it later when she's in bed, at my own leisure. I just think they'd reach more people that way, and I would actually respect them a bit more, because when you get these postcards, I just think fanatics, and I toss it.
All right.
Just, it doesn't work.
Good perception there, Christine. I think I'll go back to that wise advice from my stridently pro-life, actively pro-life writing teacher from my teenage years, who said essentially, you put an image like this in front of people or anything else that's graphic like that, and they stop listening and they start getting angry. And so, I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about banning it. I think there's a free speech issue here that's really interesting to think about and discuss, but I do think it's a bad call on their part, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it if the province and the feds take up the call from Hamilton.